Um, I'm Jim Youngquist, staff to the Southeast Regional Directors Institute, and on behalf of the Council of Peers of SERDI, I want to welcome all of you to this first of four virtual sessions that y'all will be having this week and Tuesday of next week. These are four sessions that were originally scheduled to be on the professional development conference agenda in Savannah and then Cleveland. And now they're going to be brought to you virtually by Zoom. I do want to thank Plan RVA and Martha Heater in Richmond for arranging all the Zoom links for y'all and being of great assistance in doing that. Today, the session is on why do you do marketing? And for those of you that have been around for a number of years, this was almost a taboo in the early years of regional councils. We weren't supposed to get any credit for anything. And then over the last 5 or 6 years, 10 years, as some members of our legislatures and city and county governments have questioned the value of regional councils from time to time, I think it's become more and more apparent that that's necessary and important for all of y'all to toot your horn from time to time on the great things that regional councils do throughout the 12-state region. This session was originally scheduled to be a breakout with rounds and then report outs. And so we're going to try to do that virtually today, not dividing you up into rooms, but hopefully those of you who have joined this session will either have things to share about what you're doing marketing wise in your council, or if you're not, to come with questions that might help you as you start thinking about how you might start a marketing venture in your council. We're very fortunate to have two leaders for this session to kick it off. Geraldine Gardner is the executive director of the Central Carolina Council of Governments in Charlotte, and Jeremy Holmes with the Roanoke Valley-Alleghany Regional Commission in Roanoke, Virginia. And they're both going to share some of the things that Central Carolina and Roanoke Valley-Alleghany are doing in the realm of marketing to just kind of kick it off and get y'all thinking about the subject matter of today. So with that, I'm going to call on Geraldine Gardner from Central Carolina to get us started.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm just going to, marketing communications requires visuals. So if you'll indulge me with a couple of slides. So I'm Geraldine Gardner. I'm the executive director of the newly renamed Central Carolina Regional Council. That's part of our rebranding effort that I'm going to walk you guys through just to get the conversation started. For those of you who don't know about Central Carolina, we are in the greater Charlotte region in North Carolina. We represent 9 counties in and around Charlotte, from the most urban to our more rural counties in the northern and the southern parts of our region. I came to Central Carolina just over a year and a half ago, so I'm fairly new to North Carolina, also to this group, and obviously in this role. And one of the things that struck me when I was applying for the position and looking at the organization's website and thinking about how it was positioning itself, it immediately was clear to me that we just weren't doing a great job in telling our story. And I think this hits on some of the comments that Jim made in his opening remarks. And so about a year ago, we went through kind of an abbreviated strategic review process. And unsurprisingly, one of the findings was that we had to do a better job in communicating our value and getting our name out there and not necessarily flying beneath the radar. So a couple of challenges that we faced as an organization: we were over 50 years old, but had a pretty poor awareness in the region about who we are and what we did. Our departments had a stronger identity than the organization as a whole. So Central Iowa has Workforce Board, Area Agency on Aging, we do regional planning, and we also have an economic development district. So those departments had very strong identities for their constituent groups, but there was nothing that was really tying those departments back to the mothership, if you will. We couldn't tell a story. We were very good at technically describing everything that we did, but we couldn't really describe the impact or what would happen if we went away. We weren't investing in communications or marketing infrastructure. Our website was really outdated and posed some security risks. We have one person that's supposed to do communications for the entire organization of 50 plus people. We were relying, I think, over-relying on our members to help tell the story, our member governments, and we really weren't equipping them with the right talking points. So we were making a lot of assumptions that they were able to help champion who Central Iowa was and the role that we played in the region. So we decided to do a rebranding effort. And it was about 12 months from the time we put out the RFP to the relaunch, or the launch, I should say, of our new brand, which was last month on August 12th. We really wanted to, the first goal was to match the inside of the organization to our visual and external presence. So we've done a lot of work. We refreshed our mission. We set core values. We're really articulating the why of the organization. But our visual appeal, and I'll show you the before in a few slides, was just really outdated. It wasn't modern. It wasn't fresh. So we needed to have that synergy and symmetry between what we were saying and then how we were showing up. The second reason for the rebrand was just to really strengthen our communication. So just general communications, not specifically marketing who we are, what we do, and more importantly, that value proposition of why it really mattered. And then on the marketing side, we want to focus our marketing on technical assistance and services that we can offer our local governments, as well as just marketing the membership itself and what the value of membership was, because that was some of the questions that I was getting as I was going around the region talking to our member governments. So these were our deliverables. We have a main logo, which I'll show you in a moment, and our department logos. We completely redid our website. Our consultants developed a brand guide, which you can kind of see a snippet of in the lower right-hand corner, different colors, typography. And then we started moving into some of the collateral, and we're in that process now. So we have a brand new capabilities brochure that's kind of glossy and helps empower ourselves as well as our board tell an effective story about the organization and things that you would expect for rebranding, business cards and PowerPoint templates and things like that. So this is our visual identity before. Lots going on. Probably don't think that all of these things are happening at one organization. And this is how we've streamlined into our visual identity and our brand now. So our parent brand, Central Iowa Regional Council, the icon of the C has the overlapping shades. It's reflecting the weaving that we're doing, weaving our regions together, weaving together all of the work that we do across different subject areas. Our departments have their own logos now that match and coordinate with the parent brand, with their own icons and color schemes. So it all sort of harmonizes and works together. Our next step on the logo is we're developing project-specific logos. So like Clean Fuels, for example, or the foundation, our conference, those will all be coordinated with this main logo now. When it comes to our website, we completely threw that old website out with good reason. We had to not only redo the design with our consultants, but we had to actually change the thinking with our within our departments about the organizing principles of our website. So I think every department was like, where's my stuff? I want to go to my page for my department. And we really had to push them to think about the user and how constituents or member governments would search for information. We set up a new member portal. So it's a password protected member portal that we give the password out to our member governments. We kind of post content specific, kind of getting to that membership benefits. We have a couple different tabs there, our grants alerts. All the Zoom meetings allows us to record some of our professional development programming. So we've been posting those videos to that site as well. This is one of the pieces of collateral that we developed more on the marketing side. This is the one that's done. It's a membership one-pager. So it talks about the benefits of membership. On the back, we have our member benefits that are articulated. We also set up a new system of member liaisons to have staff that's dedicated to certain sub areas of the region. And we put all this together as part of our brand launch and sent this out to our delegates and to our member governments. Just to wrap up, a couple of tips and lessons learned that I thought might be helpful to share. We certainly didn't do everything right in this process. I think we didn't know what we didn't know when we started it. The first thing that I'll just recommend is to procure smartly. So we didn't go with the lowest cost proposal, but we actually went with a local firm. And that was really important to us because when they pitched us on why they wanted to work with us, their big selling point was that they've been located in the Charlotte region, you know, since the firm was founded, and they'd never heard of us. And so they had a vested interest of wanting to help us tell our story. The second thing I learned was when selecting consultants, pick people that you can really work with, that you'll trust their counsel. They're seeing things from a completely different non-technical perspective, and I found that perspective to be incredibly helpful, not just for me, but in talking to my department heads about getting them to see outside of their department boundaries and silos. There was a lot of time that this project took. Granted, we did it rather quickly, but I did not anticipate that it was going to take as long as it did and take up as much internal manpower to do it effectively and to have people involved. And I think towards the end with COVID and going virtual, we kind of, we missed some stops with that internal brand transition that I would do differently if I had to go back and do it again. I was really clear with my board in this process. They were not driving the process. I sort of teed them up as collaborators. They didn't actually have approval authority over any of the logos. They approved the name change, of course, but I asked them to delegate the logos and sort of the brand direction responsibility to me, which they did, which I was greatly appreciative of, but it kind of took the pressure off of having to make every board meeting about the brand. The last or second to last piece is on my staff, we've got amazing technical experts, but they're not good storytellers, and I think it's just not our business. So I think retraining staff to think about how do you tell a good story, how are you communicating the impact of the work, that's something that we're continuing to work on, and that's the last tip with the power of templates. We've tried to make it as easy as possible it is for our staff to use this investment that we've made and all of this work. And we were doing a lot of training, a lot of lunch and learns to help make sure staff can take the information and use it effectively. So I'll just throw that out for discussion. My contact information, I'm happy to answer questions or elaborate on anything that you like. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy.
Thank you. The problem with going second sometimes is that you end up being redundant. So hopefully I won't reiterate too much some of the things Geraldine already said here. Let me get my screen up. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeremy Holmes. My role here at the Roanoke Valley-Alleghany Regional Commission is I run the Transportation Demand Management Program for the Commission. But since that program actually has a fairly significant marketing budget, it means we also effectively do a lot of the marketing and communications for the Commission. And my director is on the Zoom call today, so I will be absolutely accurate and on my best behavior so I don't have to talk to him after the presentation. But I'm going to give you a little bit of background about the who, the why, who, what, and how of our kind of marketing philosophy here at the Commission, starting with the why. And some of this is obvious, but just kind of to reiterate, you know, one of the reasons we do it is we feel that the work we do has value in the public realm, not just as doing a product for a stakeholder or a local government, but the projects we run, the reports and studies that we develop have additional value for our citizens, business leaders, neighborhood and community leaders. And we want folks to know that that material is out there, those studies are out there, so that they can use them in their efforts to improve our community or to be good citizens. And so we feel it's important to make sure that as much as we can, folks are aware of the products that we create. We're trying to raise the Commission's profile, kind of ways that we already said. It's really important for folks to know who we are and what we do, for folks to trust us as an organization. In part, you know, what we're trying to do is make sure that there is a conversation that regionalism is happening. That doesn't always necessarily come from our local governments. So one of the roles that we have by building this awareness is so that the public and our business community knows that these conversations are taking place and that these conversations are sort of facilitated by the Regional Commission. One of the payouts of that is, as people are more aware of us, as they trust us as an organization, that improves our public input process. People will, if they know who we are, when they get a survey or a request to join a focus group or some other solicitation to participate, they're more likely to say yes. They're more likely to understand or trust that their time will be well used, and that creates a positive feedback loop. People give us better input, the products we come up with are better, which creates more trust and more relevance in our community. So by building our awareness, that brings more people into our processes. And of course, as we've already said, this is a way to establish the value of our organization. If no one knows who we are, no one cares if we'll go away. And this is important across all kinds of stakeholder groups, just to understand that, folks to understand what we're doing, what we're bringing to the region. When we market, we're looking at two groups. You know, one is the general public. Everything I've just said is important to make sure that the public knows what the Commission's doing, what we make available, the kinds of work that we do, and the resources that they have access to as a citizen in our service area. But we also are marketing to our boards and our councils and our grantors and our various stakeholder groups. You know, we have obviously elected representatives of our local governments on our board, but that doesn't mean that every elected official knows who we are or what we do. It doesn't mean that staff heads at various local government departments know who we are or what we do. So it's equally important to market to those groups as kind of its own market segment. You know, so we do things like, for example, we make sure all of our chief information officers at our local governments are on our media release list. So we send information out to the media, we send them out to all of our local governments as well, as if they were a media outlet, which sometimes has the effect of things getting published in local government newsletters and so forth. But it's also mainly a way to keep them in the loop. The person who's in charge of kind of gatekeeping information knows what we're doing. So those are two groups that we're definitely look at as our target audiences. In our organization, who does the marketing? We do have a part-time communications coordinator. They're a full-time employee. About half their time is spent on marketing. They do marketing collateral development. press releases, media appearances, coordinating media appearances, talking points if someone else is on the media, maintains our media list, a lot of those things. They're also effectively at least integrated into our public input process. And one of the processes we're working on improving is making sure that communications person is integrated at the beginning of planning processes. So they have a long view of what's needed on the public input side, what's needed in promotion or marketing of a particular project or study. And also so they know all of these pieces, what is going out in the market at any one time. Is there going to be confusion if we drop a bunch of surveys or try to get a bunch of information about competing projects? The goal is to make sure we have a better streamlined communications and awareness process for all the work that we're doing. But we're an office of 12 people, so our project heads are also marketers. They're often doing the media for their individual projects. I think most folks in the commission have been on television at some point talking about their work, and we're not big enough to not have everyone be involved in making sure they're marketing and telling that story of the commission. But they do that in coordination. So our communications coordinator does help with talking points, is developing consistent branding and marketing materials so that we don't have 5 different people developing 5 different things to talk about their projects, to try to keep that consistency. The challenges, these are not surprises, but they're the same things. You know, we face them like everyone else faces them. The local governments, they pay their dues for matching and to get their projects done, not necessarily to market our organization. So we have to be creative with how we can fund the marketing that we do. Often that's, in our case, why public input and marketing overlaps, because again, back to that feedback, if we market well, we get better public input. And so we can make that case a little bit stronger. And of course, you know, there's a constant negotiation between marketing ourselves, marketing regionalism, but not getting in front of our local governments. I don't know that we've cracked that nut. I don't know that it'll ever be cracked, but by project by project and case by case, we can sort of determine where does it make sense for us to push a particular thing. At the same time, the better we get, the more often media reaches out directly to us. And so that negotiation often happens in an interview where we're making sure that we are promoting the work our local governments do, or promoting the reasons we're doing these projects while we're doing a media interview. How we do it, a lot of it is good old-fashioned public relations. Press releases, media relationships. We're in a small enough media market here that the worst problem we have is keeping our contact lists updated as media folks leave to move markets, and when our emails bounce and we have to figure out who the new contact at a television station or a newspaper is. But maintaining those relationships is a big way of how we stay relevant and how we get our information out. Simple things like newsletters. I'd say the biggest goal there is keeping up a steady flow of information. It's making sure that we are in front of news desks and editors and so forth as often as possible. We've been pretty lucky that through keeping up those relationships, we are as likely to get a call from a reporter or from a television station saying, I've got 10 minutes to fill. I thought I saw something from you guys 3 weeks ago. Can I come interview about that story? Or, you know, something happened. I think you guys are the ones to talk to about this. What are your thoughts about a particular project or a grant or something like that? So we become local experts. It may not have anything to do with the press release we sent out or an email we sent, but we keep up the kind of a brand and awareness of our role in the region. Obviously, we do a lot of social media. Increasingly, the idea of social media being free is less and less relevant. Buying social media ads is more and more how you're going to get in front of people, but it's still there. We still use it. We are exploring doing more with video, not just because the pandemic has forced everyone to get more comfortable being in front of a camera and being creative with Zoom calls, but just in general, that is a way that people are communicating more and more often. So we've actually been able to convert an old office into a video studio with some found and donated items that we're going to start using. We've already actually helped one of our local governments do a pedestrian safety campaign, and we were essentially their video and production company for that. So there's another benefit to kind of being seen as being good at this, is that that's another service that we can provide. And then, as Geraldine said, co-branding with our programs and projects is really important. The program I run, when I took it over, had branding that was inconsistent with the regional commission's brand. And in many cases, the TDM program had a higher public awareness than the organization to which it belonged. And we'd often be confused for being a city project or its own independent nonprofit. So it was important to make sure we did the right things with co-branding. A lot of unfortunately, I did a poor job of marketing and didn't throw examples up on my slide here, but very similar to what Geraldine showed, with making sure there's a consistent color palette and logo elements that make sure the regional commission's awareness and brand is on everything that's kind of pushed out. So the last thing I would say is, we just went through a strategic planning process last year, and the idea of building our awareness was so important and such a feature of that plan that essentially our strategic plan became a communications plan. Almost everything that we identified as part of the strategy was the importance of growing awareness with all kinds of different audiences. Our marketing is the importance to how we're going to hire and retain people and build our workforce of the future. It's important to how we get our work done now. It's important to funding. So marketing and communications really was sort of the driver for what we're looking at as our strategic development over the next 5 years. So that's all I've got. So I will also be available for questions. Let me stop sharing my screen here.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy and Geraldine, very much. That y'all are doing some really exciting stuff, and we really appreciate you sharing it with us. I've done Zoom enough now that I'm realized that there's a chat room, and there was a question that was asked on to Geraldine or Jeremy or any of you that are on here. I counted, we've got about 60 people on here today. How are you integrating required state and or federal logos for certain programs like workforce development in your overall brand?
I can take that one. So we didn't have any requirements for workforce, but we took into consideration the state workforce logo, at least the current one. Who knows if there'll be a new one with the new administration. So the colors were complementary. So we kind of looked at them through the design process to make sure that they would be complementary. And same thing with our area agency on aging. It was really important that the fonts were accessible, for example, and that there wasn't a big disruption because their audience is one of our strongest audience in terms of brand awareness. So we kind of worked around some of their requirements as part of the overall logo design.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say that in some cases we just had to grit our teeth and bear it. There's sometimes only so much you can do, but I'd say that that's where your broad marketing and awareness efforts, if you're doing a good job at that, a single piece or a single program doesn't compromise the entire communications or the entire kind of presentation. Everything else will sort of overcome the occasional exception. So we've had to do some things, for example, with billboards where we had to redesign some of our advertising to accommodate workforce and some federal Department of Labor language that you wouldn't be able to read while driving past a billboard, but we had to do it anyway. So some of that is just a design. You know, you do the minimum that you can and you build a design around that that sort of minimizes the impact and also recognize the audience. And in the end, like I said, we knew people weren't going to be able to read it, so we didn't worry too much about it. We focused on what the audience was actually going to be able to consume as they were driving past the billboard.
Do either one of your situations at Central Lina or Roanoke and anybody else online, do y'all have a specific communications point person or someone who's assigned or at least part of your time to coordinate all these marketing efforts?
We do. We have a marketing and communications manager, but frankly, the work that she needs to do is way beyond the capacity of one person. Especially trying to do this rebranding effort plus the day-to-day communications is a lot. We have a work group, so every department has one representative that sits on a committee. So we try to approach it as a team to have that person that represents the departments be the conduit for information to and from the marketing communications manager and help with things like website updates, social media, and event promotion and other things. But it has to be a team effort. I think all of us have probably not invested as much as we could in this and probably should. But it's just not realistic to have more staff doing this that are only doing marketing communication. So we've been emphasizing the team component.
Okay. What about the rest of you that are on some of your experiences or what y'all are doing in your councils with regard to marketing?
Hey, this is Chris down in South Carolina. Angela, you want to talk to that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat it, please?
Well, I was just asking for others, and obviously you volunteered, so that's great to talk about what y'all are doing at Santee Lynch's as far as marketing the council's programs, opportunities. What have y'all been doing?
Pretty much the same. I mean, we've social media, of course. We have a heavy Facebook presence. You know, our relationship with the Sumter Item, which is the newspaper there, keeping in touch with them, having that strong relationship, and you know, them contacting us or us calling them, letting them know what we have going on. So just having a strong relationship with the news outlets and reaching out to several news outlets, not just in our particular region, but outside the region as well.
And we do have a single person as the point person primarily. Angela kind of helps as needed, but we have a person. It's not her only job, but it's a big part of her job.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
we have an admin that does most of our social media, marketing type things.
Okay. Angela mentioned social media. I know Jeremy mentioned the kind of the traditional, the press releases and all that, which I think are very important. But what about social media and some of the challenges that you have seen in trying to use a strong social media presence to marketing your regional councils?
Jim, I'll try and answer that. And it takes me back to something that Geraldine mentioned, which is getting the staff to completely buy in. We went through a similar process a couple of years back, and everybody loved the idea, but getting the departments to share information on a regular basis is the challenge. It's the PR person has to almost beg, can you tell me what's happening? What do you have going on, so that she can, market the information. That's one of our challenges, is keeping those folks engaged. They truly do not see it as their job. It's an interruption for them to provide information. They want to go write grants and do other things, and we want to promote it. So that's part of our challenge.
Okay.
I think for us, with Facebook, some of the algorithms keeps us from getting things out as much as we'd like to, or it'll shut us down if we're doing too much. So just getting past that hurdle, that's a hurdle that we've seen.
Okay.
So over time, we've definitely learned here in Roanoke that social media has become trickier to manage. Part of that is, again, algorithms and the fact that we may have 2,000 people on our page, but anything we post gets 100 people to see it. So that can be challenging to use it as a free medium. So we're constantly testing, Twitter versus Facebook versus Instagram. What are the values of these things? What are the audiences that we're trying to reach? I'd also have a quick aside to say, be careful of jumping. Actually, don't be careful. Just don't jump on a social media platform just because it's there and it's new. For the TDM program, we've been talking about TikTok forever, and we keep coming back to there's nothing that an old guy is going to be able to bring to TikTok that's going to be of value to the regional commission or our program. So it can be tempting to play around with some of these tools when they start, but it's much better to find something that works and invest in whatever the media works best for that platform. Again, that's one of the reasons that video is something that we're spending more time with. We've had great luck, for example, with Facebook Live. Some of the best engagement we get is through Facebook Live. That said, despite the fact that paying for things can be obnoxious, we have found that the ability as an advertiser, using the social media tools to drill down to particular audiences that you're trying to reach is very useful. As a consumer, it's obnoxious that they know this much about me, but as an advertiser, it's really useful. We've had great success, for example, having gone through some Title VI stuff and saying, these are some people that you're not doing a very good job of reaching with your message. And we were able, really with one ad that we spent maybe $50 on, to completely overcome the deficit we'd had with doing some survey and other work. So the tools there can be very useful and aren't necessarily that expensive, but it's a bit of a constant a challenge. It also means that you have to have someone who's on it and on those platforms and paying attention to how people are using them, monitoring conversations. We've also found that pushing information out, so sometimes it's not necessarily making a post, but it's as you engaging with someone else or having a conversation with a constituent and using that as an educational opportunity. So don't just throw something and let it sit there, but actually engage. That also increases the relevancy. So if all you do is post stuff on your page but never do anything with it, fewer and fewer people are going to see it. But if you post stuff, respond to comments, do more engagement, then Facebook is going to think that you, on Facebook in particular, they're going to think that you are active, and they're going to raise the amount of people within your own kind of audience who are going to see your stuff. But it takes time, and admittedly, we don't always have that to play around on Facebook.
One of the things that I appreciate about our consultants was, their normal clients aren't in government, so they had a really big learning curve trying to get to know what we did as a regional council and understand our audience. But they really kind of pushed us to think differently and think creatively. And I think if one thing COVID has unlocked for everyone, it's that, we all are, I don't know how many, I guess 52 of us are on a Zoom call, and it's in all stages of, you know, coworkers, whether they're four-legged or two-legged, they're also doing teleschool, or you're in your home, and, you know, it's just kind of brought like a more casualness to all of this. So they were encouraging us to play with video, but to not worry about like the production quality of it, and not worry about if the lighting's perfect, you're in your right backdrop. You know, they really educated us that, you know, these days, different audiences are expecting you to be accessible. And part of that accessibility is to show all sides of your organization and the people of your organization. So one of the things that we're going to be doing moving forward is short staff profile videos, so that we can really shine a light on the great work that they're doing and kind of bring the people dimension to our team forward in our communications. Our organizations are always very person-centric, because a lot of us deliver services, and our staffs are amazing. So using communications to promote their work, promote them as leaders and individuals, does wonders for our organization awareness, and it takes it in sort of a different direction. It's not the formal marketing, it's a little more playful. And so I appreciated them bringing that awareness and suggestion to our marketing efforts.
One of the questions that's been asked is, for those of you who have been doing marketing programs, have you seen an increase in the awareness of people in your region, from local governments to regional partners to the news media? Is it paying off, the marketing efforts that you're making? Are more people aware of the regional council and what you're doing?
Hey, this is Chris down in South Carolina. I'll jump in. I would say absolutely yes, but it's not a fast-moving train. So they rebranded our logo. You can see in the back, before I came on board in 2017. I want to say that was 2016-ish, 2015, somewhere in there. And we didn't really market. And so when I came along, after I got to understand what was going on, we started doing more brand awareness, more marketing, more social media. But we really started doing a hard push on social media maybe about in 2018, toward the end of 2018. But it wasn't until this year in the summertime when we really started to pick up momentum, because you got to be steady at it, and you got to be consistent. And you, as the one gentleman talked about, you have to respond, because if you don't respond, the algorithms push you to the bottom. We recently did Angela and somebody on her staff we did a Mask for Class challenge. And we had up to about 10,000 engagements over the course of a week, which is something we've never, ever done before. And out of that, we got about, I forget, 40 or so new people to our Facebook page. That doesn't count Twitter, doesn't count Instagram, and that push. But it has to be a very concerted effort, and it's got to be consistent. And you can't get discouraged, because I'll tell you, in the beginning, we went from like 10 people following us to about 12. And then the next month we had 15. And you're like, man, what? Is this working? Is it not? Man, this is a waste of time. But you got to stick with it. And as you stick with it, the more and more they see your logo, the more they associate that program with that logo, and it starts to gain momentum. But it's definitely paid off. I can't give you a number, but in our community, Aretha Clark, she's our deputy. She's been with us about 26 years. She can attest that more people are saying Santee Lynch. They don't know what we do necessarily, but they know who we are, since we've been making a very concerted push on our marketing and branding and Facebook and Twitter and everything else, as well as the public press releases.
And we've had over 70 new followers from that Mask for Class challenge. So
Good.
Yeah.
So others, your experiences where you've started marketing programs, and the success the success that you have had in doing such, or maybe on the other hand, have you tried to do marketing that doesn't seem to be working very well?
This is Anthony, North Carolina. I would say it's been really successful for us. I would say overall, we made the decision to create a communication specialist position full-time about 6 or 7 years ago. And it's been one of the best investments we've made. And it's across the board. And I think it's raised not only the profile of the organization, but also changed the perception of the organization, as maybe things were getting a little stale before, and now we've got this more polished look. And I think it just conveys a better sense of competence and the fact that your organization is really moving forward. And so I think that that's really helped within our region. Fortunately, in our case, we were in a position where we had a really good relationship with our local governments and good, strong track history that also helped. But so we weren't repairing really, but we were just building on the successes that we already had. And so it's been really good for us, good experience. One trick that I did on the point about the committee and getting departments involved is that I didn't have a lot of indirect money to pay for that. So what I did is I made each of the departments pay for the position, so that a share of the position, so that they were vested in it, and they wanted to make sure they were getting their money's worth out of the position. And because some of them I knew going into it were going to have the attitude, oh, well, it's not that important. My work speaks for itself. I'm not going to bother engaging with the new communications person. But if I'm making them pay for 15% of the position, then suddenly they're more interested in making sure they're getting something out of it.
Great. Others?
Something I'll add to that is, I think the broader point about evaluation is really important. So we're still working on getting better at that. So obviously we do track things like our social media platforms, the increase in the audience there. I see someone had a question about Google Analytics, and we definitely in Roanoke use that to track web page views, sources, are the things that we're doing on our social channels actually driving people to the website? Are they successful? Are the ads when we run them doing what we want them to do? One of the things that we're looking at is how we can do better just getting general awareness. Do you know who the regional commission is? Do you know what we do? And so one of the processes we're looking at, for example, is we know that we've got 5 planning project processes every year that are doing surveys. And people are going to get tired of surveys. So we're trying to find ways to make that surveying process more efficient, but by adding a question about, do you know who the regional commission is? Do you know what we do? To a survey that we're already getting people's information about transportation issues or community development issues. We can measure year over year, or every time we do a long range planning process, we're going to ask that same question, so we can compare, how many people are answering, is that awareness percentage growing? So we're not there yet, and it's always easy to say you're going to do something and then never do it, but that's where we're looking at that both as a way to make our surveying process more efficient, but also how can we maximize every touch we have with the public to understand more of what they know and what they want to see out of the organization.
Okay.
Hey, Jim, if I can add one thing on social media just real quick. The one lady spoke about telling the story. So I would tell you, this is the power of that. So we have, we have an awards program. So we do a little video clip and we take pictures of the quarterly award winner. Anytime we have something going on, like Rita Clark, our deputy, she got recognized in the local community, there was a video. So then we share that on our Facebook. And what that leads to is that person shares it in their network, and then it goes out into a larger network that we would not have access to. So when you share those staff stories, hey, they can say, hey, look at me, my name's in the spotlight, but then they share it in that network and the people become more aware of what you offer.
Okay, really good point, Chris. Are any of you that are on, are any of your state associations doing any marketing efforts? And if so, how successful are they?
Sabrina, you want to talk to that? You led that effort.
So the South Carolina Council of Governments, we went through a rebranding process for our state organization, updated the logo, and redefined who we were and began to tell our story as a state. And of course, it spread to some of the individual cogs. That has gone very well. We kind of rolled it out at our annual conference and shared it with, all of our various board members who I think were very pleased. But we kind of standardized a bit to the story that we were telling across the state. We began to reconnect with our legislators and partners on the state level. Many of the folks that we previously had relationships with had retired or left, and so we needed to rebuild some relationships there. And so this became a part of that effort to meet with our governor and meet with those state department heads to work with them and to tell one story. So we had formation to assist us in identifying what that story was. And then we developed some marketing materials, and we do an annual report, a state report. We all have our individual reports, but now we also do an annual report from our state to share the activities and progress that we're making, back to telling your story, to, like you said, Jim, make sure that we're relevant. We'd seen something that said, oh, the councils of government used to do this. And it's like, hey, wait a minute, we're still busy doing things. And so that became real important to us, updated our website, and a number of other things like that. But yeah, our state has done that. I guess the last 2 years or so, 2 or 3 years, we've been working on that effort.
Okay, great. Anybody else's state that you'd like to share?
Jim, this is Scott in Florida with North Central Florida Regional Planning Council and our state association about 4 or 5 years ago now. We went through a similar effort that South Carolina did recently to not only rebrand, but basically brand our state association. We now put out an annual report. We put out a monthly electronic newsletter that goes out to over 3,000 partners, including every elected county commissioner and city commissioner throughout the state, as well as state agencies and legislators. And that has helped get our message out and our story with our statewide partners, as well as our elected officials throughout the state.
Okay, great.
Hey, Scott, this is Jason from Kentucky. And of course, our state association, the director there is starting to upgrade our state, our website, and starting to do some things on social media. But do you all have a person, Scott, that is solely directed to handle the communications for the state association, or do you do that, or does the director of the association do that?
We have a statewide coordinator for the association, and that's part of her responsibilities, as well as maintaining the website. We did also update our website several years ago.
Sabrina, is South Carolina, do you have a designated person that does that?
We do not. We all kind of share in that responsibility of providing information, and whoever the president is at that particular time kind of continues to do the reminders. And then there's one cog that will actually update the information, but no, we all share in the responsibility of providing information. It would be great to have someone, I think, but no, we share it right now.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, I want to take the opportunity to thank everybody for getting on today and sharing some really good information about marketing and why it's important to regional councils. I want to particularly thank Jeremy and Geraldine for kind of kicking it off and sharing some of the exciting things that Central Anna and Roanoke are doing. I want to remind everybody that this was a recorded session, and we'll be working out details on how to get that on the SERDI website. And we'll be doing that for the remaining 3 sessions that we have. And just a reminder that Wednesday, the 23rd, 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 Central, we'll be discussing communications and the importance of communications with your board of directors and your local governments. Sabrina Graham will be joining Lori Corley from Alabama, and Chris Rito from Florida, and Terry Brabowski from Tennessee. to talk about various aspects of how important that communication with your board and local governments are. And I'm sure we'll have an interesting discussion about that as well. So I want to, again, thank everybody for being on.
Hey, Jim, this is Wayne. Could I ask a question before we?
Sure.
I'm going to ask Geraldine, but first I want to put a plug in for the SERDI assessment. We've had two in about, what, 15 years? And the benefit of the first one was we were able to raise our dues, almost double them over a period of time, and it's been great. And the second one is what Jeremy talked about, that work you did with us a couple of years, I guess it's 2.5 years ago, helped us better understand through your focus groups and one-on-one interviews and so forth, the importance of communication. So that's why we decided to focus on communications in our strategic plan. Our board members wanted us to spend more time on that. Now, the question I had for Geraldine is, have you ever thought about changing the name? Change it from Central Ida to something else?
No, well, we did change the name, and we kept the Central Ina part. So we got rid of the Council of Governments, so it's Central Ina Regional Council. But we actually, this is maybe a fun fact to end the conversation on, that apparently Central Ina's, I can't remember what our original charter name was, but the first time they decided to change the name and how we got to Central Ina was the number 2 option was the Rainbow Council of Governments.
I like that, though.
So we ended up with Central Ina, and I don't know if we're ever going to change that.
Well, sometimes we were founded back in '69, and after 30 years, the fellow who was the board chair at that point was in marketing and advertising, whatever. He said, you know what? You guys are the 5th planning district commission, and all I can think about is you can drink a fifth or you can take the 5th. And he changed it all around. He said, we got to have some geography tied to it. So that's how we got to be the Roanoke Valley-Alleghany Regional Commission. And we used to be called PDC. No one knew what a planning district was. So Regional Commission was more common name for outside of the state particularly. And then since then, I guess half of our PDCs have changed their name to Regional Commission. So anyway.
All right. I'm glad to learn about the Rainbow call. Thanks again for everybody, and hopefully we'll see you again on Wednesday. And be careful. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jim.